Oh, what a cutie picture.
Howdy, howdy.
Hey. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing good.
My concerns about marriage are that what if it doesn't turn out well? You know, like I might get married and we are in love and it's just great, but then things get hard. Will I be strong enough and will my husband be strong enough to make things work? And I mean, for each couple, that might be, their challenges are a little different. I obviously don't know what mine will be because I'm not married, but I want both myself and my husband to be strong enough to get through the hard times, but my worry is, but what if we're not?
And I've gone on lots of dates with lots of different people and seen things that I like in one person and seen things I like in another person. So my biggest concern is trying to find someone that has obviously not everything that I've seen that I like in a person, but something that I can see in a person, and I'm like, I can really see myself being comfortable with that person for the rest of my life. So finding someone that I can feel comfortable with forever. So I've had a few girlfriends where it's like things were good, but never. There was always like certain situations where it was just like didn't feel right, and I was just like, no, it's not it. It's not it.
Okay, I think some of my concerns about marriage would be, like trying to find the right person. I think is hard to find someone who likes you as much as you like them. And then on top of that, I think marriage in general, like even once you find that person, I think it'd be hard the whole time. Like you have to plan your life around them kind of, or you have to like plan finances together or make sure you're like both always living the gospel right. I just feel like there's a lot more pressure like to find someone who's good and then also be the best person you can be for them. So it just causes a lot of like stress. I feel like, I don't know.
I can go first unless you want to, Marion. You can go for it.
Go ahead, Bryson. You can go first.
All right. You want to know that you're compatible with the person. You want to know that that you're going to be able to make it work for a really long time, forever. And so having the confidence to be able to say that is definitely a concern that I've had in the past. But all of my concerns, honestly, that I've had about getting married have really been resolved as I've walked forward with faith and as I've taken the steps to become engaged and eventually to become married. And I consider that process tender mercy from God, that He has changed my heart and my perspective and given me new eyes to see.
I like it. You're up, Marion. No more passing the baton.
All right. Well, first off, I just want to say there's a long time growing up where I didn't want to get married at all. I was pretty opinionated in that way. But that perspective changed, especially as I came to know and understand Heavenly Father's plan for His children. It talks about in the family proclamation to the world that marriage is ordained of God and it's a sacred and wonderful thing. And if we think about the nature of Heavenly Father's character, He wants us to be happy, and He wouldn't command us to do anything that wouldn't help fulfill that. And because marriage is a huge commitment, and we think of eternity and we don't even know what that looks like because we're bound by the confines of time. Everything to us has a beginning and end, and so imagining being with someone for eternity is pretty intimidating when it comes down to single choice of do I want to marry this person.
Well, I'm Julius Ibarra, and this is my wife Lisa. We've been married almost 15 years. It'll be 15 years in December.
I liked his personality. There was another cute guy that was hanging out with him that I went for first, but he was pretty boring. And within 10 minutes, I realized that I was more attracted to Julius's personality, and I thought he was really cute.
Yeah, she was hot. So that's all I needed to start. To start the initial attraction. After that, then I found out she's a really good person.
Okay, so you already looked at the questions, but before we begin, I just want you guys to just like say your guys' names, introduce yourselves, and how long you've been married.
I don't know how long we've been married.
9 months.
Oh.
So I'm Camille Bushman, and
I'm Joseph Bushman.
and we've been married 9 months.
How would you define marriage?
Ball and chain. Just teasing. The marriage is fun. You get a partner and a friend to be with and someone to sacrifice for.
Yeah, it's like living with your best friend. It's also a refining process, because for both of you to
Work out little differences.
yeah. So you have to be, you learn how to be selfless, and I think also like you both have to really put God first, and then if you're both putting God first, then the other things kind of will be where they're supposed to be, like fall into place.
My name is Bob Morley. I teach international business and organizational leadership in IBC at BYU, Idaho. And we're here with my wife, Stephanie, and we have been married for almost 18 years.
And we have 4 children, ranging from 10 years old up to 16. So 10, 12, 14, 16, 2 boys and 2 girls. I've experienced is it's the ultimate companionship, the ultimate best friend and confidant, and it can't work without charity, without putting the other person first. And I was actually listening to NPR, and they did a study where they said that the most successful happy marriages were those where the characteristic of selflessness and charity was prevalent in those personalities. And I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, like Stephanie said it perfectly, and I would say that that I think that marriage, one of the reasons that it's a commandment is because it's one of the ways that marriage and parenthood is one of the ways that we start to learn more what it feels like to feel like our Heavenly Father, which helps us better understand how He feels about us, and it also helps us understand what kind of work it takes to feel the joy that He feels. You know, like like there are some things that in marriage take work and sacrifice, and those are things that I think you can't find as well any other way.
Marriage is like the most fundamental part of human experience and development. I remember my dad telling me, even though a lot of people say that I got married early, but it's an experience that you can't get elsewhere. And because of his suggestion or advice, I decided to get married early comparing to other people.
Yeah, for me, I'd say marriage, like if I was describing what marriage was like, I'd probably say it's, you have a lot of support. I guess like before marriage, it seems like there's a lot of ups and downs, whereas once you're married, you have somebody with you, and I don't know, emotions are a lot more constant and just at a higher level, I guess. It's a lot more, I don't know. I feel pretty happy being married, so. Okay, I'm John. This is my wife, Esther. We've been married for 2.5 years, sorry. And I'm really into fishing and outdoors. And what do you like to do?
I love baking because John loves cake and cookies.
Yeah.
And studying too.
Susan, we've been married for 53 years this last April. We have 7 children, 32 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. I don't know what else to say.
Well, I'm Rocky Catanzaro. Her last name's Catanzaro too. We're not ashamed of that last name. Not worried about it being taken someplace it shouldn't go. So anyway, she told you basically a little bit about our marriage, or well, the result of our marriage, I guess, as far as family goes. So I don't know, is there anything else we can add? I don't know. There's all kinds of good things about what we like about each other, and we love being married, and we better, because ours is for eternity.
And we both enjoy being with family.
Yeah.
That's our most favorite thing to do. Is
we do like to go out with some friends here and there, and go out to dinner, go out to Hale Theater, things of that nature. We have the same likes, and so.
And he can tolerate my cooking. Hey.
She's a good cook. It's no tolerating. Our kids grew up on it, and they still like a lot of things that she made when they were children. And so if you're not so picky, you'll be fine, you know? I mean,
yeah.
There's nothing that's, the only thing I think one time she made it very,
when we were first married, Julius would listen to me, but there were times where he didn't listen to me. Like one time he bought a car against my will, and I was like pleading, like, don't sign those papers, and it ended up biting us in the butt. And ever since then, he has promised me he would always listen to my counsel, and he stays true to that. Like, he will stop what he's doing even if he feels gung-ho about it, and he will listen to me. He considers me wise. I don't always feel like I'm deserving of that title, but it has brought a lot of peace in our marriage, and it also does help us to make good choices, because 2 heads are better than 1.
Ditto.
And pretty soon, when you get our age, you both start thinking alike.
Well, that's Julius. He's like Sherlock Holmes, but.
Well, I mean, you're easy to read because you wear your emotions on your face. So. But, you know, I usually can pick that kind of stuff up. And so, you know, not ignoring it, right? But using that as a measurement to really see how we're doing, you know, and at what point it came, right? Was it after I said something? You know, did her whole demeanor change? And using that to measure, you know, maybe how we're doing, even if it's just in that moment for that day, right? But the more that we acknowledge those little moments, and the more we kind of try to help each other any way that we can when one is feeling sad or angry or frustrated, to talk about it, that kind of thing. And I think that's the way. If you don't communicate about it at all, you're probably not going to improve at all.
True.
That's
And you
true.
can't expect the other person to know your feelings or know where you're coming from. Even though Julius is good at that, like there are some times where I have to go out of my way and explain why I feel the way I do and why I feel awkward explaining it. But it does make it better for the future, so I don't have to keep saying it, because now he understands where I'm coming from and he knows how I work.
Now remember for next time. So
He does.
put it in that little file called Lisa. One more sheet of paper. You know, then you just got to go through, you know, every once in a while, check to see what's in the folder, because you can forget after so many years.
So how do you remember what's in the folder?
I mean, I think a lot of times I get into panic mode, like, oh crap, I'm in a situation, what do I do? So then I run to the folder, right, and check to see if there's anything in there that's useful. But I mean, other times, you know, I mean, you remember the little things, you know, like I know that she really likes gifts and flowers, and,
Yeah.
you know, all those little things help. What they call the little love languages, right?
Julius loves like words of affirmation, just to feel like super loved and adored. Like, and those things don't even cost money. Like he just wants to feel cared for.
Yeah, but there's all kinds of things in the folder, you know.
Yeah, like sometimes it's time, sometimes it's like helping someone out. Like all of those things like help to make you feel loved.
Or she tells me she really likes something, like a piece of clothing, pants, or shoes. You know, you remember those things come gift time, birthdays.
Yeah, even if he can't get it, like as long as he's like listening and lets me explain like why I like something, it just hears me out. It makes me feel better than if he just like rolled his eyes and said, we can't get it, you know?
There's an analogy that he do is two fists, and if you weld it together, there is that, you know, strength and weakness going together. And my concern would be, you know, what if there are times that we clashes, the differences and disagreement we can't embrace. So that was some of the concerns, but we found ways to work it out through these few years, so it's been great.
Something that my dad has said, he would always tell me, it's not about, did I make the right decision? It's about making the decision right every day.
And this is someone you want to go through hard times with. That's what I wanted to make sure I found was everybody's going to hit those fighting times or hard times. And it was, who can I talk to through those arguments and come out on the other side still loving that person? And that became clear to me with Bob, working out our concerns.
Like there was one point where we had kind of I think it was like a little fight over a car. She was shopping for cars and things didn't work out, and we had a little argument where I was like, that is just weird. I did not expect that from her at all. And as a judgmental single guy who hasn't been through fighting anybody other than my siblings, I thought, wow, this must be a sign that it's not right. You know, and you know, she was quite apologetic afterwards and stuff like that. But at the time, the way we worked it through was we kind of figured out, whoa, that was weird, and we apologized and we moved forward, which I think a lot of people do a lot of times. If now that I'm more mature, I probably would go back to that moment and say, tell me about that. Why was that so upsetting to you? And I'd try to actually use that as an opportunity to learn, because that was, you know, she was getting upset with something that would have probably upset me if I were in her shoes. Anyway, but the things I would do differently if I could, going back to that time period of how we resolved concerns, is be brave enough to actually face the concern and not just gloss over it and say, I'm sorry, but face the concern together and say, you know, when we're calm, let's talk about this again and figure out why was that a problem for you? Because I actually don't want to be a problem for you. You know, and the truth is neither one of us, I think, has ever desired to cause pain to the other. and we've done that a time or two or 1,000, you know, and yet we really like each other, and we really want to make each other's life better, and we still mess up. And I think if I could, back then and earlier in our marriage, I would more bravely resolve concerns together rather than going to my corner and then apologizing but moving forward without really working on it together.
So dating, our marriage is a big choice, and you don't want to let fear stop you from making good choices, but you also want to let concern help you to judge. And that can be hard though, because in dating, get Twitter pated, and you can look over things and be like, oh, it might be like, you might not give the correct concern to things that pop up. So
I call them red flags. You might look over red flags that you shouldn't look over because you're Twitter pated, like you said. You know, like, so just making sure you really are seeing, and even people around you often can see better than you can. So listening to your sister, if she has a concern, like, well, I noticed this, I have concern about this, like, don't just overlooking it, but listening and seeing if, like, is there a red flag there that I'm overlooking, or
yeah. And then on the reverse side, like, if you can create red flags, you can play the what if game forever.
It's true. Well, and they can, I'm sure, be worked through too through communication. Somewhat as well. Like, you need to be able to communicate and ask all the hard questions before you get married. Ask them all. Find out how they feel about all those things. All of those questions need to be out in the open before marriage.
Yep. Man, but I'm not perfect.
No.
She's not. And so you have to realize that you can help each other become better. And as long as you think the person would help you in that, it's a pretty good deal. So don't heed fear, but listen to caution. And have fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. I loved it, man. I learned more about you too than I didn't know before. I mean, I knew a lot of that, but see, we're asking questions now. This one. So I'm gonna give you a quote, and I want you to give me your response to it. What you think, how it relates to, or what comes to your mind within marriage with it. So President Monson said, when performance is measured, performance improves. When performance is measured and reported, the rate of improvement accelerates.
You're speaking Bob's language. He loves that quote.
One of the ways that I'm realizing just recently that I need to do better at is when Stephanie and I have done a pretty good job at dividing up duties, and we don't typically have arguments over finances or who does what. And I know many couples do struggle in those areas. Whereas Steph's like, hey, I feel like this is what I'm good at. I feel like this is what you're good at, and we just roll. But we often work in silos, you know, where instead of working together on issues, she goes to her stuff, I go to mine, and we work on it. And then, and in one area where I think we're working on now and finding improvement is it's important for us to connect back on those kinds of things and ask, how can I help you, and be a team. We're an awesome team on many things, and there's other things that we go and we do our stuff and we don't talk a lot. And as we learn to talk more, it's helpful. Like, for example, there have been investment decisions in the past where I felt like it was my duty to work on all that stuff, and I wasn't really informative to Stephanie. And the more I have learned to talk to her about what I've got going on, the more I've learned, whoa, I have a tremendous help and asset in my partner, and I haven't been utilizing that. And I think the same thing goes for, you know, as Stephanie has been focused on different things with the children over the years and stuff, and I've come in and tried to do my thing when she's like, whoa, you're kind of messing up the plan. And I've got some things going here, and you haven't been here enough to even know. You know what I mean?
Those were the traveling. I think those might have been the traveling years.
Oh yeah, especially during the traveling years. And I think, sadly, in today's world, most everybody's going to travel some. And you, like Stephanie said, you want to minimize it. But especially when you're traveling, but really any time in marriage, if you have goals that you're working on, if you don't actively rejoice in the fact that you have a partner and work together, you'll struggle to reach those goals in the same way as when you embrace partnership. And I think we're starting to figure that out after 18 years, and I can't wait to see what it's like after 28. You know what I mean? Because I'm just barely starting to realize, whoa, I lucked out in having a real partner, and I can talk to her about anything, including all my challenges at work, whatever, and I'll do way better with her.
I think part of the way that we have kind of gauged our progress and made sure we're growing together and attaining goals is Bob has always made a firm try to always set up date night every week. And I mean, I was grateful that he would instigate that, because a lot of times when the kids were young, I was tired and I just thought, that's just one more thing. I just don't want to set this up. I don't want to have to call. I just don't want to do anything else besides this, you know. And it was so good that he kept that he would call the babysitter. He would do the work, still courting me to this day. And it's during those date nights, we got away from the family and we could talk about our goals as a companionship or as an individual. And those are the times that we would brainstorm together or talk about, oh, you know, I did this, or the kids did this, or look at what we've done so far. And I think those date nights are very valuable to assess how much we're growing and things like that.
So with that quote, I think it applies to a lot of different things if you wanted to. But what comes to your mind with marriage with that quote?
What comes to mind is when you start having children, you don't have a clue what to do to begin with. We never raised children before. And so when we got our first child, Tonya, we figured out how to change diapers together, you know, and all kinds of different things. And so I think as time went on and we had other children and that, you learn different things. Every child is different. And so you learn along the way as you look back at what you were doing with your first one as opposed to your seventh one. And so, you know, that's kind of where you measure your, you know, what you've done in the past and what you now do. So you kind of rate your performance from when you first had your very first one, and then you find out that along the way you made some mistakes, and you try to correct those along the way and not make them anymore. And hopefully your children come out on top regardless of what you did as a parent, because sometimes parents make mistakes.
And I think to go along with that quote, it sounds like if you compliment each other, if you talk about the good things that you see in each other, you want to do it more, you want to be better, you want to make the other person happy. It accelerates, like it says in that quote. So
she's mine and I'm hers, and it's just nice to know you got someone beside you.
Good to ask these questions. I feel like, we always learn when we share too, and we solidify our own understanding. So thank you.
There's just so much love in their home, and I want to replicate that. And I've seen other families that have, that same environment full of love. And I feel like as long as I'm making good decisions and following the guidance of the Holy Ghost, that I will be able to have that in my future, no matter what happens. And, like I said, there are lots of what ifs in the future, but there's also the what if of like, well, what if it works out just fine? And I feel like that's probably most likely what's going to happen. Like, obviously there's going to be trials and tribulations, and there's just going to be hard times, but I know that as long as there's love and kindness, that's a place I want to be. And I think that having a home and a family makes that very possible. And so, I'm more excited for marriage than I am fearful for it. There are some concerns, but all of the pros outweigh the cons by a lot.
So what are you most excited about, Bryson?
I am excited. I'm just excited about the idea of never being alone. Like, this world's a difficult place, there's a lot of challenges and things that we all face. I just love the idea of always having someone who understands me in an intimate way better than anyone else, always be by my side. Like, that's super, super comforting feeling. Like, I know we always have God with us and we always have the Spirit, and that's amazing. But to have someone that's experiencing what we're experiencing with us, to literally be right, like really, really close to us, and to be compassionate and to offer support, like, I can't think of any other choice blessing that could come close to that. So I'm super, super excited for that. I'm also just excited for the little things. I've told Maren about this, but just like spending time together, like doing the dishes or doing laundry, like little things like that. Opportunities to serve too. Like, I can't wait to like bring Maren breakfast in bed one time or something like that. Just little things I feel like are going to be so really, really precious and sweet. And then also I feel like our progression, and I have felt this, and I think it will continue on. I don't think it's going to be like a huge difference all at once, but I felt that my progression towards living with God eternally eventually has been accelerated since I've been in the relationship with Maren. That the effort that I've put forth spiritually has been reciprocated by her, and together we've come closer to God because of that. Because there's certain aspects of spirituality, of the gospel, that Maren is way more capable in and knowledgeable. She's my superior in many ways when it comes to the gospel. And I just feel like I've learned a lot from her, and I'm really excited to continue on that path with her together. So those are some of the things. I mean, I could go on if you want, but those are like the main ones.
Oh man. That was too great. Oh man, you got it. You got one, Marin.
I know. I'm really blessed. Bryson talks about it, but honestly, I think I got the lucky end of the stick.
So what are you most excited about, Marin?
Well, first, I guess I want to start out by saying I've come a long way, and it's been cool to see how Heavenly Father has brought me to this point where, because we have two extremes, right? Like, first I never wanted to get married, and now I'm getting married.
What are you most excited about, Bree, about marriage? Because I know you are.
I'm most excited.
Wait, I gotta hear the tone of voice. I don't hear no excitement.
I'm most excited. No. You can't even do it. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things to be excited about. Like, you always have a friend who's like there for you and supporting you, and like just someone's always there that you can have fun with, or I don't know, do fun things with, and someone who will like be there for you when you have a bad day or something. And then obviously you can have kids, which are fun. So
you wouldn't have had that if you kept that mindset, right, of I don't want to get married.
Yeah, you're right. I'd be missing out on a lot.
Any last words you want to say, Bryson?
Nope, I don't think so. It's amazing, Ruth. It is amazing. Like, words do not do it justice. I hope you know that. Like, we can share all these things, and I love sharing them, and it's really helpful to us, I think. But at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things you have to experience for yourself, and it's different for every person, you know? But I'm just really, I would definitely say there's never been a happier time in my life. There may be in the future, but there hasn't been.